Hello YouTube people! It's good times in synthesizer world nowadays because there's a lot of stuff that you can buy, there's a lot of options. Today I want to go over some of the synthesizers that I know a little or I have an opinion about, so hopefully I can bring some value discussing them. So let's start with like mono synths, so synthesizers that can play only one sound at a time. Let's first start in the budget range. So the first mono synth I want to discuss is the Novation Bass Station 2. I think this is the best bang for the buck, feature-wise, because it has a lot of features packed into a really budget-friendly synth. But in my opinion, it is a bit standard. There's no real character which defines the Bass Station 2. I don't own one. I do have the Novation Peak, so I know a little bit the characteristic of the filter. Yeah, just what I say, it's a bread and butter synth. It's like you can do a lot with it, but it doesn't stand out in one particular way. So if you want an all-around synth that doesn't have like a really specific character, so you can use it for a lot of different sounds, then the Bass Station 2 I think is the best bang for your buck. And a new old player on the market is of course the Behringer Model D. It's new because it's just released, but of course it's modeled after the Mini Moog Model D. This is also just a really high bang for your buck, because basically you have a Mini Moog for a couple of $100, and that's insane, because like a second-hand real Mini Moog costs you around 3,500–4,000 euros. So yeah, it's a steal. I will get one when they're more readily available. I don't have one yet, but it's just the classic. Everyone knows the sound of a Mini Moog. And that's a good thing, because it withstands the test of time, so it's a classic for a reason. But on the other hand, everyone knows the sounds already because it's been around since the 70s, and now that it's really affordable, everyone will get it, so it's not gonna be the synthesizer that makes you stand out of the crowd. Nevertheless, same story as the Bass Station 2. It's a great synth and you can have awesome sounds out of it, and if you process the sounds and if you just make good music with it, it's an awesome synth. Can't deny that. Then I want to mention the Dreadbox Erebus. That is more of a boutique analog synthesizer. I think it sounds really good. It's at the higher price range of the budget range. Feature wise, there are better options out there, but if you really like the old real analog feel, then I think that is a really good choice. And it's a bit more boutique, so it's not too mainstream. It has a really sound of its own. But then I want to mention the synth that has surprised me the most lately. I will grab him. That is... It's not really fitting in the whole space, but you know what it is. It's like the Korg Monologue. Talking about character, this synth has some character. And it's packed with features. No, it's not the same amount of features as the Bass Station 2, but it has a lot of features, and I think the makers really put thought in every little thing. Every knob has its own sweet spots. They limited the envelopes, but in a way that you can really make it musical. There's a step sequencer, there's micro-tuning opportunities. That's really cool if you like Aphex Twin type sounds. Yeah, and it really has character. It can do funky bass lines, it can do weird sounds, it can do vowel-like sounds with the fast envelope. Yeah, what else to say? The filter is dirty, it's raw, it's in the line of what Korg already has been doing since the MS-10 and since like that. So I'm really enthusiastic about this machine, and just what I said, it can be like a real funk machine, it can be an acid machine, but it can also play like flute types, beautiful sounds. It can do weird patterns. It can do, yeah, for this small feature set, it can do like a whole bunch of things. So I'm really happy with it, and it will not move anytime soon. So tip of the week. So now let's move on to the mid-range mono synths. I'm not gonna talk about the high range because, yeah, that's also for me out of my price league, and yeah, that's for the rich and famous. So there are two mid-range mono synths that for me have like a really cool character and add something new. Nowadays synthesizers, analog synthesizers, they lack that certain amount of character. Sometimes they sound really generic, and the two synths I'm gonna talk about now really do have how do you say it, oomph. They have balls. They can compete just with the vintage synthesizers like a Korg Monopoly or something like that. So the first one I want to discuss is the Vermona Performer. You can compare it a little bit with the Korg Monopoly, but it basically is 4 mono synths, 4 really simple mono synths, and you can use it polyphonically, you can use it as a monophonic or a duophonic synth. You can stack it up, you frequency modulate it. It's like a really, really, really nice synth, and with lots of sound design possibilities. Sound-wise, it's very much like old Roland sound. So the filter design is also like a bit acidy, a bit like a Roland SH101. It's buttery smooth, it has the same vibe, and yeah, it's a really joy to play and joy to program. It just has knobs, no menu diving. It's lovely. I really like it. The other synth that I also own is the MFB Dominion 1. This is a modern synth that really has balls and characters, especially in the mid-range of the frequency spectrum. I don't know, it has some grit, it has a lot of filter possibilities, a lot of functionalities, a lot of LFOs, a ring modulator, 2 ring modulators, patch points for your Euro rack if that's what you're into. Yeah, it's a great sounding synth. There's a great sequencer in it as well. Yeah, it's really a beast to program cool stuff with it. So those are my 2 real tips in the mid-range, and I own them both, so I know how they sound, and I'm really in love with them. And of course I leave out a lot of synthesizers because there's way too much, or they're too specific. So if you want to make acid, of course you want to buy a 303 clone. If you really want the Moog sound, then you buy a Moog, like a Sub 37 or something. I like to have character synthesizers that have like a specific character that you don't hear that often, and that's why I talked about these synths that I talked about. So let's move on to the polysynths. And they're gonna break down the house here. Okay, so in the budget segments of polysynths, if we want to go analog, I think there's only one option out there, and that's like the Korg Minilogue. I haven't bought one myself, but from the demos I've heard, it's a really nice sounding synth in the budget range of polysynths. It's ridiculous what they do, basically. Yeah, if you want that, and it has also like a character, a bit harsh sounding, but in a beautiful way. Yeah, I really like that. So in the analog section, there's not really much in the budget range. So there are 2 synths that I want to talk about that are digital, because I don't hate digital. Digital synths are really cool. And of course you have the Roland Bouquet range. I'm not gonna dive into that. The only one that I really like is the D05, the D50 emulation. That would be a really cool synth, but I have enough, and I'm more of a wavetable kind of guy. Which brings me to the next two synths, because the first one I want to talk about in the budget place is the Audio Thingies Micro Monster. It's still on my wish list. I really want to get a hold of one, but they were sold out, and then I thought to myself, I already have a Blofeld, so I don't need it, and blah blah blah. But for a digital synth in that price range, it's like super highly featured, and it's really compact as well. It's like really a small box. Yeah, I think it's the filter sounds really good for a digital synth. So they've done something really cool there at Audio Thingies. So I think that's a highly recommended synth for me. So what I already said, one of the reasons why I didn't buy a Micro Monster yet is that I already own the one and only Waldorf Blofeld. If someone asks me a first synth to buy, I probably advise this synthesizer. This or an analog mono. I think that's with two synthesizers you can do a lot of stuff, because this is it's of course polyphonic, so that's also something you always need to make chords and stuff like that, but it has normal subtractive synthesis, but it also has wavetables, and it has tons of character. It's multi-timbral, so you can have 8 different sounds at the same time. It sounds really cool, especially the PPG filter emulation. And yeah, just what I said, my favorite synthesizer is a Waldorf Microwave 1 with the analog filters from the 90s. But what this can do is, here you can have 2 totally different wavetables as oscillators and do separate stuff with them, and so it's even more fun. Yeah, I wish they made like a new Microwave 1 type of synth that is not 4,000 euros. What like now the Waldorf Quantum is going to be. I want the Quantum in a compact, hopefully rack mount thing, maybe with no knobs and just like an iPad or an iPhone interface, but just for like 1,000 euros and then 8 voice polyphonic. That would be awesome. So Waldorf, if you're listening, make also a budget friendly Quantum. So yeah, the Blofeld, really all round synth. You can make some warm sounds with it, but you can also make the icy cold, typical Waldorf wavetable sound. So yeah, highly recommend it. So then we arrive at the mid-range polysynths. I already talked about the Pomona Performer. That's also of course a polysynth, so I'm not going to talk about it again, but highly recommend it. A really nice sounding synth. Then a synth that I really want, but I don't have the money yet to buy. That is the Dreadbox Abyss. I don't know really how you pronounce that, but oh, that's such a nice synth. I want to have it. It's super simple in architecture, but it just sounds so magnificently good. It's like instant 70s polysynth sounds. It's, yeah, just go watch some demos and you will see what I mean. It's talking about character. That synth is a character house. Not that much features, but yeah, sometimes you don't need them. So of course I have to mention my newly purchased synth, and that's the Digitone. It's a digital synth, it's an FM synth, it's a relatively simple FM synth. There are a lot of FM synths of course available also for really cheap, but this whole integration with the electron sequencer just makes this so versatile. It's, yeah, from dubstep basses to really smooth ambient, you can do it all, and with all the parameter locks and with all the randomization with the LFOs, it's and of course you also have a filter, a great sounding filter to sculpt your sounds, which is quite unique in FM synthesis land. Yeah, you can make some beautiful sounds with it, so highly recommend it if you're looking for these FM type sounds, or just with the weird sequencer to make weird patterns and like totally evolving. Yeah, that's highly recommended. Also in the mid-range and packed with features is the Future Sonus Parva. It's a great synth, and I'm saying that a little bit hesitant because it's not perfect. Feature-wise, it's perfect. It's got 3 oscillators per voice, it's got 8 voices, it's got 4 envelopes, 4 LFOs, 2 filters I believe, but they have fixed, so it is a low pass, high pass or a band pass, and you can play it like with polyphonic aftertouch and stuff like that, and with the new types of keyboards from Seaboard, I don't know how you call it, but with all the per note modulation, the new technology stuff, I can't remember the name. So feature wise, it's absolutely for this type of money, I think it's €1,000 or $1,000 for the 8 voice version. Feature wise, it's awesome, but it's still in beta software wise, and the calibration of the filter is not for my taste. It overdrives the filter like really fast, which can sound good, but the sweet spot of the cutter filter and the levels of the oscillator is like really low, and then the noise level is quite high because of the screens. I don't know exactly what the technical stuff is, but he's still working on it, but he just have a family and he's a one-man band, so it's you have to have really a lot of patience for the new updates of the operating system to come by. I don't know if I'm recommending it. It sounds beautiful if you find the sweet spots, but the sweet spots are really sensitive to be in that area. So, but yeah, on the other hand, I have an Alesis Andromeda, and that's also like a synth that you have to really handle with care, otherwise it will sound crappy. And if you every stage you keep everything low, then it can sound, then it is the best sounding analog polysynths in my opinion. Yeah, hopefully new updates will come soon from this Future Sonus Parva, because it can become like a future classic. I really think that. And as I said, I am a wavetable kind of guy, so of course I have the Novation Peak. Here we have it. What I really like about this synth, of course, it has 3 full oscillators, which you can have 3 wavetables on every 3 different wavetables on every oscillator, and that is sound design heaven. I almost never used like the normal waveforms because, yeah, like I said, I'm a wavetable guy. It has a ring modulator, it has a okay sounding filter, it sounds okay, but what I said about the base station, it's a bit standard. It doesn't have really a character of its own, but it's really sounding great when you combine it with the wavetables, and it's super hands-on. That's what I like. I'm really used to like the Waldorf Microwave 1, and I'm really good at just programming it on the synth itself, but this is just a joy to use. Just turn a knob and sounds change. The menus are really shallow, is that the right way of saying it? So there is some menu diving, but it's so quick, and I think 80% is on the surface accessible by the knobs. It has brilliant digital effects on it to really enhance the sound. It has a cool arpeggiator on board, 8 voices. It's not the most characteristic synth, but it's just so quick to make sounds with this, and it's so hands-on and a joy to program. So yeah, I'm really loving this one. If you have the money, this is a really good option for a polysynth. I think one of the best around nowadays. So yeah, that's my opinion about some of the synths that I talked about today. Of course, I have not mentioned them all, and that would be like a really boring and really long video. Yeah, leave your comments down below what you think of the synths that I talked about, or maybe I really missed a awesome synth that you think should be in here. Then I also really want to hear your opinion. If you like this kind of video, please like it and leave a comment, so I know that you really want to listen to me blabbering about synthesizers. Yeah, I will see you in the next video. Bye. Doei. Later. Alligator.